revealed how a chance encounter in the rain changed the lives of one homeless woman and one amazing social worker forever. Sarah was late. The pouring rain pounded against the pavement, creating a symphony of distress unlike anything she felt in her career as a social worker. She glanced at her watch, anxiety knotting her stomach. This meeting was crucial. As she stepped off the curb, a shiver ran through her. She needed to make her pitch count. She needed to believe in the system. Just ahead, a dilapidated bus stop offered a flimsy shelter, and she darted under its awning as droplets slid down her coat. In the corner, huddled against the cold, sat Joan, a homeless woman clutching a worn backpack. The sight hit Sarah like a punch. Joan's frail figure spoke volumes. Years of hardship etched across her face. This wasn't just another statistic. She was a person, someone who had fought and lost, discarded by society. Sarah felt an overwhelming tug at her heart. "Hey," she offered, her heart racing. Joan looked up, surprise mingling with weariness in her eyes. "Hey there," she replied, her voice soft yet filled with a quiet resilience. As the rain drummed a relentless beat around them, they struck up a conversation. Joan shared her story, of dreams once fulfilled, of motherhood and stability that had slipped through her fingers like sand. Her honesty crackled in the air, igniting warmth amid the pounding storm. Sarah listened, completely absorbed. Her own worries fading as Joan's journey unfolded. She felt the weight of isolation seep from Joan's words. "People just see the dirt. They don't see the person," Joan said, bitterness creeping into her tone. Sarah's chest tightened. Here she was, stuck in her own life's labyrinth of frustrations about grants and bureaucracy. Yet she was sharing this moment with a woman who faced down the storms of life with nothing but her spirit. Before Sarah could respond, she caught a glimpse of the world outside. The rain was letting up, but the heaviness of bureaucracy loomed large. A grant was pending, one that could turn Joan's life around, yet it was entangled in red tape. Sarah felt fear grip her. Would she sacrifice her own job to fight this? Her career meant everything, right? But what if it wasn't enough? She had always believed that hard work led to change. Joan's courage burned brightly against her own doubts. "I want to help you," she said, the conviction lacing her words as the air crackled with urgency and unexpected solidarity. "Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Their stories intertwined like threads of a tapestry, drawing in the small community that swirled around them. People paused, cornered by the stark contrast of their lives, the hopeful social worker and the resilient mother. As Sarah gathered courage to speak up at the next meeting, she could feel Joan's spirit inside her urging her forward. But choices hung thick in the air. Would she risk everything for someone she barely knew? As she drummed her fingers against her leg, conflicted heartbeats echoed her rising determination. Outside, the remnants of the storm raged on, but inside, hope sparked bright. Both women stood at a vital juncture, fates as tangled as the city's downpour. What would happen next? As their journey grew deeper, would they find the courage to defy the odds together? The next morning, the sun broke through the clouds, washing the streets in a golden glow that felt oddly fresh after the relentless storm. Sarah pushed her way through the double doors of the community center, her heart still racing from the conversation with Joan. The air was buzzing with voices, but all she could think about was the urgency of the meeting ahead. Today was the day she would make her case. With every step, her resolve solidified. She could almost hear Joan's voice in her head. "Don't let them see the dirt, see the person." It was a mantra she needed to embody, not just for Joan, but for everyone like her. As she settled into her chair, she looked out at the group of board members, her colleagues sitting across the long table, faces serious and eyes expectant. The meeting began, and presentations flowed across the room. Policy changes, funding challenges, and numbers peppered every discussion. With each passing moment, Sarah felt herself shrinking, her thoughts caught in a swirl of fear and doubt. What if they dismissed her? What if they didn't see Joan as she saw her? When it was finally her turn, she stood and faced the group, her palms slick with sweat. "I'd like to talk to you about a young woman named Joan," she started, her voice shaky but igniting with passion. Joan isn't just a name on a report. She is a mother, a fighter, and she deserves more than just the statistics we throw around. She watched their expressions carefully, some raised eyebrows, others crossed arms. But she pressed on, weaving Joan's story into the fabric of her presentation. She has dreams. She wants to give her son a stable home. But she needs our help to break the cycle. A murmur rippled through the room, but Sarah felt a flicker of hope. Perhaps they were finally listening. She was about to wrap it up when someone interrupted, asking, "What is the plan? We can't just throw money at her situation." A clarion call for practicality that hit her hard. Was she letting emotion take the lead? "I want to create a support plan," Sarah insisted, threading her voice with determination. "It involves partnerships with local businesses for job placements, therapy support, and most importantly, affordable housing options. But we need immediate funding to get started." As she concluded, a silence settled in the room like a blanket. The members were exchanging glances, some skeptical, others intrigued. It felt like a delicate balance had tipped their faces, reflected a flicker of possibility that had been absent just moments before. After a few seconds that felt like lifetimes, the chairperson finally spoke. "Your passion is clear, Sarah. But it's going to take a lot more than words to convince everyone here." Yet far from discouraging her, the comment ignited a fire within. "I know it will take effort, but Joan's story is just one among many. We have a chance here to change lives." As the discussions continued, Sarah caught sight of the clock. Time was slipping away. She needed to keep pushing, to keep advocating for Joan, whose future hung in the balance. Later that day, Sarah exited the community center, head held high despite the daunting task ahead. She didn't realize that an unexpected ally was waiting for her just outside Joan, holding that same old backpack, determination glowing in her eyes. "Did you do it?" Joan asked, hope seeping into her voice like the sunshine warming the pavement. Sarah nodded, her heart swelling. "They're considering it, but I might need your help." Joan's brow furrowed in confusion. "How can I help?" "You'll see," Sarah said, her smile genuine. "We're going to need your story on the ground level too. It's going to require both of us." As they stood there, an unspoken understanding grew between them, pushing them both forward. "Then I'm all in," Joan declared. But could Sarah forge a path against the bureaucracy? And would Joan find her footing again? Much hung in the balance as they shared hopeful glances, and as the sun dipped below the horizon, a storm of new challenges was brewing on the horizon, threatening to test their newfound strength even further. Would they emerge triumphant, or would the weight of their circumstances prove to be too great? Despite the weight of uncertainty resting on their shoulders, Sarah and Joan felt an invincible energy buzzing around them. They tossed around ideas about how to address the board and share Joan's story further. Each idea sparked excitement, unveiling new pathways they could take. "Let us organize a community forum," Sarah suggested, her hands gesturing in enthusiasm. "We can invite everyone, families, local businesses, neighbors. They need to hear your story." Joan hesitated, her hands tightening around the straps of her backpack. "What if they don't want to listen? What if they judge me?" "People are more understanding than you think," Sarah reassured her, placing a hand on Joan's shoulder. "You just need to show them your heart, your strength. We'll make it about hope, about overcoming. It's your story that will connect with them." Joan exhaled slowly, a mixture of fear and courage swelling within her. She had spent so long hiding from the world. Would stepping into the light expose her vulnerabilities? Or would it show her resilience? The next few days flew by in a whirlwind of activity. Sarah and Joan spent hours planning the forum. Joan shared candid moments of her daily struggles, her dreams for the future, and the love she had for her son. Each piece of her narrative felt like a revelation, pouring from her soul as Sarah captured it all, eager to bring Joan's authentic voice to the community. As the day of the forum approached, the excitement was palpable in the air. Flyers adorned shops and bulletin boards, vibrant colors inviting people in. But so was that familiar feeling of dread. The night before the event, Joan sat on the edge of her bed, staring blankly at the walls around her. What if no one showed up? What if it didn't make a difference? "Hey," Sarah said softly, breaking the silence as she entered the small room. She settled beside Joan, realizing she could feel the fear emanating from her like a cold draft. "You ready for tomorrow?" Joan glanced up, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "What if I can't do this?" Sarah took a breath, searching for the right words. "You've already done so much, Joan. Sharing your story is a strength, not a weakness. Think of it as reaching out to others who might feel lost, just like you did." Joan nodded, though uncertainty still etched lines across her forehead. But a small flame of determination flickered inside her, and she knew she had to try. Dawn arrived, illuminating the community center with a fresh kind of hope. Sarah was there early, setting up chairs and checking the sound system. Each chair filled with new faces, curiosity blending with the anticipation. And when Joan walked in, she drew every eye. Clad in simple clothes, she looked remarkably ordinary, yet encapsulated a deeper story resting within her. As they took the stage, the room fell into a hush. Sarah introduced the forum, and then turned to Joan, offering her the mic with a nod of encouragement. The silence grew thick, and Joan could feel her heart pounding like a drum, a symphony of nerves playing out in her chest. Taking a deep breath, she began to speak, her voice quivering at first, but gaining strength as she continued. She spoke of loss, love, and the dreams she held close to her heart. Her eyes locked on the audience, people leaning in as if her words were pulling them closer, as if they could literally feel her struggle. And then, as she reached the part of her story where she had hit rock bottom, something surprising happened. A young woman in the front row started to silently cry. Joan's heart ached for her. In that moment, it dawned on Joan that she wasn't just telling her story. She was connecting with others who recognized bits of themselves in her journey. After wrapping up her story, the room didn't erupt with applause, but remained enveloped in an emotional stillness. That was until a member of the audience stood up, breaking the silence. "Thank you for sharing your story, Joan," he said, voice steady yet thick with emotion. "We need to hear more voices like yours." As others began to join in, the collective outpouring of support ignited something powerful in the room. It felt electric. Yet amid all this, a shadow loomed. As the conversations flowed and ideas for support began taking shape, a dark figure loomed outside the center. Unbeknownst to Joan and Sarah, it was someone tied to Joan's troubled past, someone who would soon threaten everything they were building. An unsettling realization rippling through the gathering, just as it felt, as if they were finally gaining ground. Would they manage to maintain this newfound momentum, or would the past catch up with Joan and tear apart their hopeful new connections? The applause faded, but an undercurrent of energy lingered in the room. Joan felt a mix of relief and adrenaline coursing through her veins. As she stepped away from the mic, Sarah rushed to her side, her face lit with pride. "You did it. You really did it." Joan smiled hesitantly, still processing what had just happened. The words she had spoken felt like a release no longer kept hidden, but broadcasted for everyone to hear. She had opened a window into her soul, and the warmth of acceptance wrapped around her like a soft blanket. But in the midst of their celebration, Joan's instincts kicked in. She glanced towards the edge of the crowd, and her heart sank. The dark figure lingering outside the community center was not just an apparition of her anxieties. It was a memory made flesh, someone who had cast a long shadow over her life. Sarah Joan's voice trembled slightly, anxiety creeping back in. She gestured toward the openness of the exit where the figure stood, unmoving yet prominently aware of the gathering's energy inside. "What is it?" Sarah followed her gaze, brows furrowing as she squinted into the daylight. The figure remained shrouded in the shadows just outside, a vague silhouette with features obscured. "Oh, Joan, is that?" "Yes." Joan almost choked on the word. Memories washed over her, thick and suffocating. The bad decisions, the hiding, the way this person had come to embody her worst fears. That's him. What if he tries to ruin this? Without waiting for a response, she pushed through the growing crowd, urgency setting her heart racing. "Stay close," she called back to Sarah. As she moved, murmurs filled the air. People were still buzzing about her speech, but Joan felt the energy shift. She made her way toward the entrance, the figure coming into better focus, a tall man, weathered and downtrodden, with eyes that seemed all too familiar. "Joan," he said, a gravelly voice breaking through the clamor. "I need to talk to you." Her stomach knotted, dread coiling tightly. "What do you want?" She shot back, keeping distance between them. He stepped further into the light, revealing a face that had haunted her past. "I swear I'm not here to cause trouble. I want to explain." Joan almost laughed, though it was a desperate, humorless sound. "Explain? After everything?" Yet her voice came out softer than intended, sensing the shift in the man's demeanor. "Please." He held up his hands, palms facing her in a gesture of peace. "I just want to make things right." "Make things right?" The anger bubbled up inside her, close to boiling over. "You threw my life into chaos. After everything. How do you even think you can fix it?" A flicker of vulnerability crossed his face, which only caused Joan to clench her fists tighter. "I got help. I'm not the same person anymore." Joan felt a multitude of emotions collide within her. A tingling in her fingers mirrored the uncertainty swirling in her gut. Could he really have changed? Or were these just empty words intended to pull her back into a situation she had fought so hard to escape? Behind her, Sarah had joined the growing audience, concern etching her features as she observed the unfolding scene. "Joan, maybe we should go back inside," she whispered, urgency in her tone. Joan couldn't take her eyes off him. The man who had hurt her, now looking so small and regretful. "What do you want from me?" she finally whispered, uncertainty creeping back into her voice. Would he drag her back into the darkness? "Just a chance, just a moment of your time," he said quietly, desperation framing his words. But as the crowd continued to murmur and tension thickened, Joan knew this encounter was far from over. She would have to decide whether to confront her past head-on or walk away from it all. "Just a moment," she repeated incredulously, sensing the weight of the decision she was about to make. Did she even want to hear what he had to say? And as the weight of that moment hung in the air, the question loomed even larger. Was she ready to face what lay within, or would this chance encounter shatter everything she had just built? Joan's heart pounded in her chest, each beat echoing her doubts. She had thought the hardest part of her journey was behind her, but here they were. Time seemed suspended, the world around them fading into a dull blur. All she could focus on was the man standing before her, a stranger yet achingly familiar. "I can't believe this," she said, forcing the words through gritted teeth. "You think I'm just going to let you walk back into my life? After everything you did?" His eyes dropped to the ground, shame and regret etched in his features. "I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I'm different now. I've been working hard to better myself. I need you to know that." "Different?" she scoffed, feeling a mix of anger and confusion surging within her. "You ruined everything. What makes you think a few months of therapy can undo years of damage?" "Because I've faced myself," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "I've seen the hurt I caused, and I'm trying to atone for it. I didn't want to lose you like that. You were always," he hesitated, searching for words that mattered. "Always what?" Joan pressed, her curiosity pulling at her even as caution braided tightly around her heart. "An anchor," he finally said, lifting his gaze. There was a pain in his eyes that she hadn't seen in a long time. "No one else ever made me want to change before. Not until I lost you." The crowd around them buzzed with whispers, but to Joan, it felt like just them in that moment, their shared history creating an invisible barrier against the outside world. Her pulse quickened. Did she really want to know the truth, or was it safer to let the boundary remain? "I don't even know who you are anymore," she said, desperation creeping into her voice. "What if this is all just an act? What if you're about to hurt me again? Then you walk away," he offered, desperation lining his words. "But I'm asking you to give me a chance to explain, to show you how I've changed. If you don't think I'm worth your time after that, I want to push you." The strength in his voice astonished her. Joan felt the tears prick at the corners of her eyes, a battle of emotions waging within her. She had spent countless nights dreaming of this moment, wishing for the chance to finally address the unresolved hurt. Yet here it was, and she wasn't sure if she was brave enough to unlock that door. "Joan, please," Sarah's gentle voice peppered through her thoughts. "You're not obligated to listen, but what if it helps you find closure?" Closure. It was a word Joan had clung to for so long, but never truly grasped. The mere thought sent a shiver down her spine. She desired healing, but it was daunting. Could confronting her past truly lead to that? "I don't have to make a decision now," she said finally, her throat tightening. "But what do you want to say?" The man's shoulders relaxed slightly, and he took a small step closer. I want to tell you about the choices I've made since we last saw each other. The mistakes I regret and where I find myself today. Joan hesitated, feeling the tension slip just a bit. This was her chance to hear his side. But would it bring her hope or unravel the fragile peace she fought to build? Before she could answer, thunder rumbled in the distance, dark clouds rolling in over the horizon. As the first drops of rain began to fall, the crowd instinctively shifted, looking for shelter. But Joan stood firm, eyes locked on the face of her past, knowing that whatever came next would change everything. Would she finally confront the shadows that haunted her? Or would the storm pull her under once more? The rain picked up, each droplet splattering against the pavement with a rhythm that seemed to echo Joan's racing heart. Shoppers dashed for cover, their umbrellas snapping open like startled flowers. The chaos of the shifting crowd felt miles away, as the world narrowed down to just the two of them, suspended in this charged moment. "Just give me a moment to talk, okay?" he pleaded, his voice steady yet laced with urgency. "I need you to hear me out." Joan felt the knot in her stomach twist tighter. Part of her wanted to scream, to break away and run until her legs gave out beneath her. But another part, a whisper of hope, maybe made her stay. "Fine," she said, drawn in despite the warnings flashing in her mind. "But this better be good." He drew in a shaky breath, glancing around momentarily, as if seeking approval from the universe itself. "You remember when things were good between us? The laughter? The plans?" A flicker of a smile crossed his lips before it faded. "I took it all for granted. I was too selfish to see how my actions impacted you. I thought I could handle everything on my own." Joan felt a mix of annoyance and sadness at his words. "And look where that got us," she replied bitterly. "You were drowning, and you pulled me under with you." "I know," he said, his voice raw. "But here's the thing, being alone in that darkness made me realize something. I started to think about what I actually wanted and how important you were in that picture." He stepped closer, his hands out as if wanting to bridge the gap between them. "I had to strip down to the basics. The more I looked at my life, the more I understood who I was losing and what I needed to change." Her breath caught in her throat. Jill had spent endless nights replaying their memories, dissecting them for clues, for signs of who he had been before everything fell apart. But it still felt risky. "You think I can just forget the past, just like that?" "No," he said quickly. "I'm not asking for blind forgiveness. I want to show you that I'm more than the sum of my mistakes. I want you to see me as I am now, imperfect but fighting." Thunder echoed overhead, and the first blinding flash of lightning split the sky. Joan instinctively took a step back, her body responding to an instinctive fear. "You're asking so much," she whispered, the weight of his request settling heavily on her shoulders. He held her gaze, an earnestness in his expression that made her doubt whether he was putting on a show. "I know it sounds impossible, but I want to be honest with you about my journey, about the work I've done. Can you give me a chance to show you who I am today?" Joan's heart tugged at her. She thought of all the nights she'd spent dreaming of reconciliation, of moments like this. Yet here, in reality, she felt on the edge of two cliffs, one leading to the past she knew all too well, the other to a future uncertain and frightening. In the growing chaos of rain-soaked streets, Joan glanced toward the storm clouds. The thunder rolled again, and she shivered, unsure whether from the chill or the realization that she stood at a crossroads. "Okay," she said slowly, surprised by her own courage. "But only if you promise to hold nothing back. No more lies, no more hiding." As he nodded, relief washed over his face. Their lives pivoted on this fragile moment. Would they be able to reclaim the love lost or find a deeper understanding, cloaked in rusted memories? The rain continued to pour around them, a relentless reminder that while the past couldn't be changed, the future remained unwritten. But what secrets lurked within his journey that could either heal or further wound her heart? Joan stood still, her heart pounding, as the rain drummed louder, pelting down like 1,000 tiny questions against the world around them. She wasn't sure if she was ready for whatever story he was about to unveil. Every muscle in her body screamed for more distance, yet here she was, leaning in, seeking to untangle the web between them. "You really want to go there?" she asked, her voice barely above the storm's chorus. "Yeah," he answered, unflinching. "I need you to know everything. I won't hold back this time." His honesty felt electric, sending shivers down her spine. She searched his face, trying to decipher the truth behind the shifting shadows of their memories. The raw vulnerability in his eyes sparked a flicker of hope, but doubt quickly tugged at her heart again. She was standing at the abyss, caught between fear and the faintest spark of renewed aspiration. "All right, go on," she encouraged, her voice steadier than she felt. He took a deep breath, his gaze steady as the rain continued to cascade around them. "After everything fell apart, I ended up at my brother's place. I didn't want help, but I was desperate. It wasn't until I hit rock bottom that I finally started to see how much I had to lose." He paused, pain etching deeper lines in his face. "Every time I thought of you, I felt the weight of my selfishness crushing me. I was too wrapped up in my own darkness to notice you were there, fighting for us." Joan felt a lump form in her throat. Each word pulled her back to the love they once shared, a time when joy wasn't eclipsed by shadows. But his pain was palpable, almost tangible. "I started going to therapy," he continued, his voice gaining strength. "I wanted to understand why I became that person. It was hard sitting across from someone who kept holding up a mirror to my mistakes. But it showed me who I really was and who I wanted to be. I learned how to face feelings I kept buried." As he spoke, flashes of their shared laughter echoed in her mind: picnics in the park, late-night talks, dreams of the future. Would those be lost moments forever? She was caught in a flood of bittersweet nostalgia as she watched him fight against the very thing that had torn them apart. "I made a promise to myself," he said, voice choked with emotion. "I'd become someone you could depend on. I'm learning how to communicate better, how to ask for help, and how to be there for the people who matter. I can't change the past, and I wouldn't even want to, because it led me here, to this moment with you." Joan took a shaky breath, her heart swelling with a mix of fear and yearning. Could this be the beginning of a new chapter? One filled with the possibility of trust and healing. Diluted light began to pierce through the heavy clouds of storm, a sign of the universe shifting, perhaps? She glanced around, noticing the once urgent shoppers had slowed, their hurried rhythms replaced by a curious stillness. They felt like witnesses to a fragile moment, a moment that spoke of change, a second chance twisted in the rain. "It's a lot to process," she admitted, her voice thick with emotion. "I need to think. We both deserve time." "Of course," he said gently, "but promise me you won't shut me out. I want us to work through this together whenever you're ready." As the rain began to taper off, Joan felt a new awareness rise within her, a blend of hope and uncertainty intertwining. What if they could rebuild, not just from the ashes, but grow into something even more beautiful? Her mind raced, pondering the possibilities as she glanced at him one last time. "What happens if I decide to take that leap?" He smiled softly. "Then we write a new story, together." As Joan absorbed his words, a shiver of excitement coursed through her, but a flicker of doubt lingered. Was she ready to rediscover love with all its complexities? Rain-drenched yet hopeful, they stood on the verge of something explosive, something that could either bring them closer together or rip them apart. In that charged silence, uncertainty echoed louder than any raindrop, resonating through them both. But what if? The journey was not merely a rediscovery of their love, but a confrontation of truths that would change everything? Joan blinked, struggling to process the whirlwind of thoughts swirling in her mind. Should she dive deeper into the unknown, or was it safer to take a step back? He was offering her a chance to rewrite their story, yet the fear of reliving old wounds kept her anchored in hesitation. "Look," she started, but the words felt trapped, heavy like the rain-soaked air around them. "This is a lot, and I don't want to rush into anything. We need to be honest with ourselves and with each other." His eyes held hers, reflecting an understanding that made her heart ache. "Then let's be honest. What are you afraid of?" he asked, his voice steady. "Everything," she replied, her breath hitching. "I'm afraid of getting hurt again. Afraid of putting my trust in you after everything that happened. What if we try, and it's not enough?" He stepped closer, the distance between them shrinking. "I understand why that terrifies you. It terrifies me, too. But I can't pretend that I don't want to be here. Not anymore." The intensity of his gaze made her stomach flutter. Joan's mind was still racing, battling the remnants of their past with the hope that flickered in the present. The memories of their arguments, the silent nights, and the heartbreaking goodbyes loomed large. But the tenderness in his voice and the vulnerability laid bare in front of her stirred something deep within, a longing for change, for resolution. "I want to believe in us," she admitted, her voice cracking slightly. But I need to know you're truly committed this time. Not just words, actions. I'm showing up, aren't I? He replied softly, a hint of a smile threatening to unfold. That essay start. I'm not running away, Joan. I'm here, and I want to put in the work. The rain settled into a gentle patter, as if the universe was agreeing with him. She thought back to the countless nights alone, wishing for a connection, for laughter and warmth. Suddenly, it felt so vivid, the memory of sharing dreams, of making plans. A life that wasn't tainted by shadows, but illuminated by promise. Okay, she said finally, her heart racing with a mix of fear and excitement. But can we go slow? I need time to process everything, especially what it means for us to be us again. He nodded, the warmth of his presence reassuring. Absolutely. I'm in no rush. We take it one step at a time. A sound of laughter floated through the air, breaking the spell they'd been under. Joan turned her head to see a group of friends huddled together under an awning, their joy a sharp contrast to the heavy emotions weaving through her. She realized that even amidst the rain and uncertainty, life was still moving forward for everyone else. Can I ask something? She ventured. What if we don't even make it? What if it all falls apart again? That essay risk, he said, his expression thoughtful. But here's the thing, I'd rather try than spend another moment wondering what could have been. You deserve that, and so do I. The raw honesty in his words pierced through her defenses. She felt the hope she had been resisting slowly unfurl, wrapping around her like tendrils of warmth. It was terrifying, yet somehow exhilarating. Let us promise each other something, she suggested. If at any point it feels like we're losing ourselves again, we stop. No resentment, no blame. Just honesty. Deal? He agreed, his smile blooming fully now as the last of the rain dripped from the awning. Joan felt lighter, her heart swelling with cautious optimism. Maybe this was the beginning of something beautiful, a partnership forged from understanding and vulnerability. Maybe they could paint over the scars of the past with moments that sparkled in the sunlight of tomorrow. But just as the weight of hope filled her, a haunting thought swept in. What truths would surface that they had yet to confront? As they stood side by side, a new storm loomed on the horizon, whispering hidden secrets that waited to be uncovered. Would facing those fears strengthen their bond, or threaten to unravel everything they just began to rebuild? The sunlight peeked through the clouds, timid yet promising. Joan and he stood in the newly warming air, each vulnerable, yet daring to breathe hope into the space between them. She felt that something was shifting. The past no longer seemed like an anchor, but rather a shadow, a backdrop that could perhaps enhance the new colors they hoped to paint. What now? Joan's voice wavered, still unsure, but slightly more confident. It felt like standing on the edge of a diving board, heart racing. What do we do next? His gaze flickered around them, as if gathering the pieces for their fresh start. Let us just take it one day at a time. How about we grab coffee? Talk. Really talk. The idea was simple, but it sent a thrill through her. Coffee sounds nice, she replied, smiling despite the weight still pressing on her chest. It was a start. They walked side by side, the concrete streets glistening from the earlier rain. As they passed the familiar coffee shop, the smell of roasted beans wafted through the door, inviting and warm. She felt a rush of nostalgia. Memories of countless afternoons spent over steaming mugs, conversations drifting from dreams to laughter. Inside, they settled into a small table at the back, surrounded by the soft hum of chatter and steamy machines. The warmth enveloped them like a blanket. Joan ordered her usual, while he opted for something bold. They sat across from one another, the air thick with unspoken thoughts. So he began, fidgeting slightly. The nervousness reminded her of their old days, when silences stretched and words felt too heavy to share. What do you want to talk about? Everything, she admitted. I guess I just want to know why now. Her heart thudded in her chest. Why not just leave us in the past? I've thought about that a lot, he said, searching her eyes. I thought maybe it's because I realized how much we truly mean to each other. I never stopped caring, Joan. I got scared. His voice dropped, revealing a vulnerability that made her ache. I'm here because I believe we can be better. For a moment, their eyes locked, and she felt the barrier of time and hurt between them crack open, just a little. But vulnerability had its risks, too. Scared of what? She probed, curiosity mixed with caution. Of the possibility that I could hurt you again. Of failing. Of being the reason we don't make it. His honesty hit close to home. She was familiar with that fear, had lived it. A heaviness settled over them. But amid the intensity, something about this felt healing. I'm scared, too, she confessed softly. Scared of falling back into old patterns, of losing sight of what we need. He leaned back, contemplation on his face. Then let us set some ground rules. If we start feeling like we're falling apart, we call it out. Right away. Agreed, she said, relief mingling with hesitation. But I think it's more than just talking. We need to understand ourselves first, be honest about our feelings, our fears. Rebuild trust. His eyes lit up, the glint of understanding sparking deep within. Then let us do that. I'm ready to put the work in if you are. Unexpected joy bubbled inside her. To talk, to feel free enough to express it felt like a breath of fresh air after being underwater for too long. But in that moment of clarity, she couldn't shake the feeling that old wounds lingered just below the surface, waiting for the right moment to reemerge. Okay, so what is the first step? She asked, taking a long sip of her coffee, its heat comforting. He smiled, and this time it reached his eyes fully. Start by asking questions. Let us dive deeper, even if it's scary. Just as they began to open up, an eerie silence filled the cafe, the chatter fading. They both turned to see a man in the doorway, his face pale and frantic. The weight of the world hung on his shoulders, and the energy in the room shifted. Help, please, he called out, breathless. Jonah's heart raced. What did he want? As the tension grew thick, she felt an unsettling awareness settle inside her. Sometimes, fear has a way of revealing truths we weren't ready to face. Would this moment be a distraction or a revelation for both of them? The man took a shaky step forward, his eyes darting about the cafe. I need someone to hear me, he stammered, a mixture of urgency and desperation in his voice. Joan and her companion exchanged glances. This was not the distraction they needed, but it felt significant, the weight of someone else's crisis colliding with their fragile moment. What's the matter? Joan found herself asking, drawn to the raw emotion etched on his face. I just lost my job, and I was living paycheck to paycheck. I'm about to lose my place, I don't know what to do, he poured out, his voice breaking. The cafe had fallen silent, the scent of coffee drifting into the air thick with tension. Joan felt her heart clench. She recognized the despair in his words, the same despair she had faced, sitting at that bus stop with nothing but a backpack. Hadn't she once felt just as lost? Can you tell us more? Sarah chimed in, her voice a seamless weave of compassion and urgency. I can't go back home. It's not safe. Please, I don't want to end up outside, I need help. The vulnerability laid bare caused an undercurrent of collective empathy to ripple through the cafe patrons. Joan felt a stirring inside her, a flame igniting against her cautious heart. Let us help you, she said slowly, a sense of clarity washing over her. This needs a community response. We can organize something, I know people who can help. We can't just look away. The gasps and murmurs from the other customers echoed, but Joan was charged with resolve. That's exactly what we need, her companion added, urgency in his tone. Connections with local resources, shelters, job placement firms. Joan, I know you have ideas. And just like that, the cafe transformed from a haven of uncertainty to a stage for potential. Responses flowed, conversations sparked like wildfire. Suddenly, a woman from the back of the cafe stood up, her expression firm. I'm a local business owner. I can provide job training. I can also give a little to help with rent. As voices united, plans began to take shape, floating like the steam rising from their coffee mugs. The worries that had once felt heavy now lifted, forming a community alliance born from pain, yet filled with hope. Joan felt an overwhelming sense of purpose blossom within her. This man's plea had awakened something she quietly locked away. It was as if she stood at the front lines of something profound, the kind of change that transcended her own journey, touching lives that also lay on the brink like her own had once been. As they dove deeper into solutions, laughter erupted, cheers echoed, something real was happening. Walls were breaking down, and she and her companion began to realize that confronting challenge together paved pathways to healing. What have we started? He asked, eyes sparkling with newfound energy. Something beautiful, she breathed, a broad smile breaking across her face. In the wake of shared stories and renewed hope, Joan felt free. For the first time, She looked past her own struggles and saw the importance of community, of connection, of empathy. The fear that had once paralyzed her began to melt away, replaced by the warmth of collaboration and light. Hours passed, and as she and Sarah stepped outside the now-buzzing cafe, sunlight washed over them, sparkling off the pavement like a blessing. Did you see how it all unfolded? Sarah marveled, her cheeks flushed with excitement. Together we pulled that off. I feel alive, Jones said, her heart boldly striding to the surface. But despite the joy that surged through her, she couldn't shake the shadow of her past. The encounter with the man still loomed. As the thrill of their victory settled in, she realized they still had work to do, work that required confronting the truths that made them stronger. I think we're just getting started, Jones said with a determined nod. Together, now more than ever, they were ready to face whatever was next. Joan could finally breathe, no chains to restrict her matches with codependency. Instead, with Sarah beside her, each step offered an opportunity for healing. As they walked, the sun set in vibrant hues, painting the sky and giving Joan clarity. They had ignited a new path not only for themselves but for those around them. And the journey, but more importantly, the choices they had made would guide them into the bright unknown ahead. This wasn't simply a continuation. It was a bold new beginning. And now, speaking of beginnings, if you felt inspired by this transformation, it's time to show your support. You need to subscribe now so you don't miss the next exclusive stories that will tug at your heartstrings. Leave a like right now to feed the algorithm and let others feel this story's impact too. Comment below with your thoughts on the ending, how it made you feel, and what resonated most with you. And share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to feel this kind of hope and transformation. Don't wait, not even one more second. Stand with us and be part of this journey. Your support matters more than you know.